So, Farron, of course, a very busy news week, and it started out, or I should say, the low light of that week was, of course, these terror attacks that took place in Brussels. We saw almost, and the death count, frankly, is not over, but scores injured. At last count, I saw a couple of hundred people who were killed. I mean, excuse me, injured. At least 31 who were killed. And apparently, this terror attack took place in the wake of an arrest of the remaining actively involved terrorists from the French terror attack from several months ago. And it is suspected by authorities, although yet to be totally confirmed, that once this Absalom was apprehended, that the other members of his cell basically activated a plan that they had in the works. And it involved 3 different suicide bombers, 2 at the Brussels airport, 1 in the metro, and then a 4th bomber who left a suitcase bomb in Brussels. And this is going to be part of the new normal in Europe, Farron.
Well, and the worst part is this is normal in the Middle East now. This is what has been created for decades over there, and now it's spread to Europe. And I think one of the biggest problems is, every step forward takes another step back at the same time. We don't know how to approach this situation. We don't know how to handle this. As a country, we don't know how to fight something that's not necessarily a concrete entity like this terrorism that we see. This isn't a country. It's not a religion. It's not a particularly organized group. And so it's difficult. The United States has always struggled with the abstract. And the response that we have seen from Republican candidates and Republican politicians will do absolutely nothing to solve the problem or even address the root causes of terrorism. Right. And that's where we have to go with this. We can't just say that Islam is bad, that we need to profile Muslims, or that any particular country is supporting terrorism. We have to get to the causes of this. What makes people want to join groups like ISIS or Al-Qaeda? How can we improve living conditions in these countries that we have decimated to stop the flow of terrorism? That's where we need to head with this conversation.
Well, I mean, first off, Europe has a greater challenge than us because, particularly in a place like Belgium, you have Muslim communities which are isolated in many respects by a series of issues there. You also have anywhere from 5,000 to 8,000 European nationals who have traveled to Syria to fight with ISIS, and they return home. And the other challenge that Europe has that, frankly, the United States doesn't have is that from country to country, there is not the cooperation between intelligence services and police services that we have in this country between states, and that we have since 9/11 when we have different intelligence agencies that can communicate with each other better. So this is a particular problem in Europe, and their intelligence services are obviously failing in many regards. But you're right. The response by particularly Ted Cruz, who tried to get out ahead of Donald Trump and out Trump with this, by calling for police to actively monitor and patrol Muslim communities, is absurd. I mean, the fact of the matter is, in this country, it is because the voices that would seek to isolate and to ostracize Muslims in this country have been largely rejected by Americans. So when Donald Trump spounces nonsense, or when Ted Cruz spounces nonsense, we have people like Bill de Blasio and William Bratton step up and say, this is nonsense. And this is not only a counter to American values, but it also is increasingly counterproductive, because the only reason why it takes 4 or 5 months for Belgian officials to find this perpetrator of the Paris attacks is because they don't have, they have communities there that are basically ostracized from the rest of society. And it allows for, those who, you want to call them radical jihadists or whatever they are, to basically hide from the police. I mean, look, we have this problem when it comes to people who bomb abortion clinics, right? We have people who will go up into the woods in Appalachia or down in Georgia and whatnot and escape the authorities for years because they're helped out by people who are sort of outside the mainstream. We don't have an equivalent in this country where you can have these type of individuals who can exist now within America, within Muslim communities, and not get reported to the police. I mean, that's just simply the fact of the matter. So I don't think in this country that we are in, obviously we're in some measure of danger, but let's keep this thing in perspective. It's far more dangerous to drive your car down to the local supermarket than it is in terms of the threat that terrorism poses to you. But nevertheless, this is going to be demagogued. It's going to be exploited. And certainly Europe has to do something about this. And let's not forget, ISIS exists because this country elected to invade and occupy Iraq. There was no national security interest in doing so. And we're basically now, and the rest of the country, the world, is reaping what we have sown. You cannot expect to just decimate a country with no plan to rebuild it. And frankly, let's be honest, there was no plan. There could be no plan to rebuild a country in that situation and not expect these type of things to occur.